Hello and welcome. I'm an ethical hacker, a computer scientist, and I'll be your instructor in this course. In this course, I'm going to teach you ethical hacking from scratch, so I'm going to assume that you have no prior knowledge, and by the end of it, you'll be at a high intermediate level. So we'll start by teaching you how to set up a penetration testing lab and how to install the needed software so you can practice hacking safely. Once done, the course is divided into 4 main penetration testing sections. The first is the network hacking section, where you'll learn how networks work, how devices communicate with each other, and how to exploit this method of communication to control all the connections around you, crack Wi-Fi keys, and gain access to Wi-Fi networks, whether they use web, WPA, or WPA2, and intercept data to capture usernames, passwords, chat messages, or anything that anybody does on the same network. Once done with this, we'll move to the gaining access section, where you'll learn how to gain access to servers and personal computers. So first, you'll learn how to gather comprehensive information about your target, discover vulnerabilities, and exploit them to gain full control over the target system. Not only that, but you'll also learn how to generate undetectable backdoors and use social engineering to deliver them to your target as a fake update or as a PDF or an image or any other file that they might be interested in. You'll also learn how to spoof emails, so when they're delivered to your target, they appear as if they're sent from a friend, from their boss, or from any address that they're likely to interact with. Once done with all of this, we'll move to the post-exploitation section, where you'll learn what can you do with the access that you gained in the previous sections. So you'll learn how to interact with the file system, how to execute system commands, record keystrikes, open the webcam, and even use the hacked computer as a pivot to hack into other computers. Once done with all of this, we'll move to the website hacking section, where you'll learn how websites work, how to gather comprehensive information about a target website, and how to discover and exploit a number of dangerous vulnerabilities that allow you to gain full control over the target website. At the end of each section, you'll learn how to secure systems and secure yourself from the discussed attacks. Now, before we dive into the course content, I'd like to give you a teaser or a taste of what you'll be able to do by the end of the course. So this is going to be one example that's based on one topic that's covered in one subsection of the course. Now, because this is a teaser lecture, I'm not going to explain the technical aspect of how am I doing this, because I'm going to teach you how to do this as you go through the course. For now, just sit back and enjoy this lecture, and after this lecture, we're going to dive into the course content, where you'll learn how to do things like this and much more. So in this video, I'm going to give you an example of hacking this Windows computer from this Linux machine. So in this example, I'm going to use a program called Beef, which is a browser exploitation framework. I'm going to launch it from here. And the way this works is it uses a JavaScript code to hook a target computer, and then once a computer is hooked, we'll be able to run a number of commands. Now, to do that, I'm going to use a man-in-the-middle attack to automatically inject the hook code for Beef. So I'm going to use a tool called man-in-the-middle-f, and I'm going to do an ARP spoofing attack, and I'm going to give it my network interface, and I'm going to give it the gateway, and I'm going to give it the target IP address, which is the address of the Windows machine. Then I'm going to tell it that I want you to inject a JavaScript URL, and I'm going to give it the location where the hook code is stored. I'm going to hit enter. And that's it running. Now, I know this looks very complicated. You don't know where I got the options from. All of this looks confusing. But again, don't worry about that. We're going to talk about this and go through this step by step, so it'll be very easy for you. Right now, all you need to understand is this program is going to inject the hook code, so the code that allows Beef to hack into that computer. into the browser of the target person so that the code will run without the person even knowing. So I'm going to go to my Windows machine, I'm going to run the web browser, and I'm just going to go to any website, so I'm just going to go to bing.com. Now if we go back to the Kali machine, you'll see that we have the IP address of the target person under the hooked browsers. And if we click on the Commands tab, you'll see a large number of categories with commands that you can run on the target computer. Again, we'll talk about that later in future videos. What I'm interested in is a plugin which allows us to show a notification bar on the target computer. And what I'm gonna say in that notification bar is I'm gonna say that there is a new update, click here to install it. So what this is gonna do is it's gonna show the target person that there is a new update, and once they install that new update, I'll hack into their computer. To do that, I'm gonna have to use a backdoor. Now I've already made a backdoor that's not detectable by antivirus programs. I'm not gonna show you how to do that now, but in the course you'll learn how to do that. So right now I'm just gonna say where I stored the backdoor, and I called it update.exe. So that's it, that's all done. I'm gonna click on execute, and that will execute it for me. Now before I go and run the update, I'm going to listen for incoming connections so that I can connect to the target computer once they try to update their computer. So again, I'm gonna explain why we need to do this and how to do this in future lecture. Right now I'm just gonna do it very quickly. And once we do that, if we go on the target machine, you'll see that their Firefox is telling them there is a critical update, and you need to click here to install that update. I'm gonna click it, and you can see that it's downloading an update file for me. I'm gonna save it. Now that's downloaded for me. So if I go to my downloads, just to show you what the file looks like, you can see that it looks like a normal file. It has a nice icon. If we run it, we'll actually get an installer that will update Flash for us. But at the same time, this is going to execute my backdoor at the background. Don't worry about this. I'm going to teach you how to make your Trojans or your evil files look and function just like any other file. So you can have a picture, a PDF, or an installer like I have in here that works like a normal file, but at the same time, when it gets executed, it'll execute your evil code in the background. So now, even though that the target person is happy, they think they're installing an update for their Flash player. If we go back to the Kali machine, you'll see that we managed to get a reverse session from the Windows machine. So I'm going to interact with that computer, and now I'm inside it. So I can do so many things with the target computer. I basically have full control over that computer. And we're going to talk about all the things that you can do in the post-connection section of this course. What I want to do now is I want to show you how to access the webcam of the target computer. So we're going to use a plugin that comes with Meterpreter. So I'm just going to do webcam stream. I'm going to hit enter. And as you can see, I managed to turn on the webcam of the target computer. So this is actually a webcam that's attached to the Windows machine. And right there, you can see me, and I basically hacked into the Windows machine. I can do anything I want on the Windows machine. And I can also turn the webcam. I can inject a keylogger. I basically have full control over that machine. Now, again, this is just an example of one attack that we're going to use. We're going to do so many more attacks like this, and all of them are going to allow us to gain full control over the target system. So don't worry about how to do this attack. Don't worry about the commands. Don't worry about all of that. This is just a teaser, a simple taste of the things that you'll be able to do by the end of the course. Now, as I promised you, this course is going to be highly practical, but I also promised that I will not neglect the theory. Now, what we mean by hacking is being able to gain access to a system that you're not supposed to have access to. So, for example, logging into an email account that you're not supposed to have access to is considered hacking that account. gaining access to a remote computer that you're not supposed to have access to is hacking that computer. Reading information that you're not supposed to be able to read, again, is considered hacking. So you can see that there is a large number of ways to hack into a system, and the word hacking can refer to a number of things, but the main concept is the same. Gaining access or being able to do things that you're not supposed to be able to do is considered hacking. Now, there are three main types of hackers. We have the black hat hackers. These are the bad people that hack systems illegally in order to steal money or to achieve their own illegal goals. The second part of hackers are the white hat hackers. So this is us. These people use the same techniques used by the black hat hackers, and they also hack into systems. But they only hack into systems that they have permission to hack in order to test the security of these systems. And finally, we have the gray hat hackers. These are a mixture of the two. So they'll hack into any system, even if they don't have permission to test the security of the system, but they will never steal money or damage that system, and in most cases they'll go ahead and tell the administrator of that system. But what they do is still illegal because they test the security of systems that they do not own or do not have permission to test. Now, one big question that people always ask is, why hacking? Why teach or learn hacking? Well, hacking is an existing industry. There are lots of job opportunities for ethical hackers, for people like us who would go ahead and test the security of systems to make sure that these systems are secure and not vulnerable to black hat hackers. There is actually a huge demand for ethical hackers these days because of the increased amount of hacking attacks. So we hear on the daily big systems and big companies are getting hacked. Not so long ago, Uber got hacked and information of more than 56 million users were exposed. So companies like Uber, Facebook, and Google, they hire hackers in order to try and hack into their systems and tell them where the weaknesses are so that they can fix it. They also have bug bounty programs where they literally ask all the hackers around the world to go ahead and try to hack into their websites and with their web applications, and if they could, they will pay them a bounty for the bugs that they find. As I mentioned, this course is going to be highly practical. Therefore, you will need a lab, a place where you can practice and experiment with the things that you're going to learn in the course. Not only that, but having a lab is essential for hackers or pen testers, because let's say you discovered a new attack or you want to experiment with a new attack, or you learned something new online and you want to test it, then the perfect place for you to test this and practice hacking is a hacking or a testing lab. Now, to create a lab, you just need a number of computers with different operating systems, and you'll need a number of networks if you're testing network attacks, and if you're testing website attacks, then you will need to install websites on these computers. Or you can do all of this inside your computer, inside one machine, and install everything else as virtual machines. And this is what we're going to do. So let's say you have your computer right here. This is your main computer that you use every day to check your emails or even to watch this course. This computer might be running Windows, OS X, or Linux. It doesn't really matter. It can run any operating system. You can keep all the programs that you love and like, and install a virtualization software such as VirtualBox. A virtualization software allows us to create a number of virtual computers inside your main computer. So we can have 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 computers all installed inside your main operating system, inside your main computer. The really cool thing about this is you will not need a number of computers. You can do everything inside a single computer. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a hacking machine. This is going to be the machine that we will use in order to hack into other machines. We're going to install Kali Linux on it, and we'll talk about what that is later on. And we're going to have two target machines. These are machines that we're going to try to hack into and practice hacking against. One of them is going to be running Windows, and the other one is going to be running an operating system called Metasploitable, and we will talk about that once we get to it. Now, it is very important to understand that you will not lose any functionality when you install an operating system as a virtual machine. You can use that machine exactly as if it's a real physical machine. So the really cool thing about using virtual machines, first of all, you're not going to lose any functionality. Second, all the machines are going to be isolated. So as we go through the course, we're going to be trying to hack into these machines, and we might actually break one of them. But that's fine. It will not affect your host machine. You will be able to easily fix this and go back to a snapshot of when the machine was working without affecting your main computer. The other cool thing is that you'll be able to have a number of different versions of each of these machines, and you'll be able to change the configuration easily, change the network settings, or switch between different states of these machines, and so on. So, by using virtualization, you will not lose any functionality, but you will gain so many cool features. And the main thing to keep in mind is your host machine, your main computer, will never be affected. It's completely isolated. And if we break any of these machines, nothing will happen to your precious computer that you use every day. And this way, you can always use your host machine for daily use, for checking emails, watching the videos, doing whatever you do normally, and then use your virtual machines for hacking and practicing the attacks. And this is what I actually do. So you can see I have my host machine running OS X, and I never use this for hacking. But right here I have VirtualBox, and as you can see I have a number of operating systems installed on it, and I can literally start any of them by selecting the one I want and just click on start. Now don't worry about this, I will show you how to install these virtual machines as we go through the course. But what you need to do right now is download and install VirtualBox, this program. So you can download it from this page. I'm going to include its link in the resources. And like I said, you can install VirtualBox on Windows, OS X or Linux, so it supports all operating systems. Just pick your operating system from here, download the relevant installer and install it. Installing it is very simple. All you have to do is literally double click the installer, click next, and it'll install it for you. Once you start it, you'll see a program similar to this, but you will not have any virtual machines here, so it will be empty. And I will show you how to install all of these machines as we go through the course. One more thing to do as soon as you install VirtualBox is to download and install the extension pack. This will give you better compatibility, and it'll allow you to use USB devices on the virtual machines. So you'll be able to use a USB mouse, USB keyboard, and USB wireless adapters. Again, downloading and installing the extension pack is very simple. There is only one file. It's always the same file for all operating systems. It's the same for Windows, for Linux, for OS X. You just have to click on the download link in here. Once you download that, I already have it downloaded, so I have it right here. And this file will only work if VirtualBox is installed successfully. So first of all, install VirtualBox from these links right here, like I said. Once you download it and install it and can see a window similar to this without these machines right here, we'll see how to install these later. Then download the extension pack from here. You'll have its file similar to this file, and only then you can double click this file and it will automatically open in VirtualBox. As you can see, it's telling me that I want to install the extension pack. It's giving me the version, which is the same version as the version of the VirtualBox that I downloaded. It has to be the same version, otherwise it will not work. I'm going to click on install. We're going to agree to this license. I'm going to put my password. And as you can see, it's telling us that the extension pack is installed successfully. So now we can go ahead and install virtual machines in VirtualBox. Now throughout the course, we're going to be using a number of penetration testing tools. You can go ahead and install each of these tools manually, or you can do what most pen testers do, including myself, and save time and effort and use an operating system designed for hacking. We're going to be using an operating system called Kali Linux, and it's just a flavor of Linux based on Debian, and it comes in with all the programs and the applications that we need to use pre-installed and pre-configured. This means that we can just install this operating system and then start learning our hacking. There are two options to install Kali. You can install it as a virtual machine inside your current operating system, or you can install it as a main machine, as a main operating system. Throughout the course, I'm actually going to be using it as a virtual machine because using it as a virtual machine works exactly the same as installing it as a main machine, because it will be completely isolated from your computer because it's only going to run inside VirtualBox. So if you break it or if you mess things up, it's very easy to fix. It's very easy to go back to other snapshots, other configurations, and also you won't lose any functionality by using it as a virtual machine. That's why I always use it as a virtual machine. And in this lecture, I'm going to cover how to install it as a virtual machine inside VirtualBox. Now I'm going to be doing the steps on a Mac OS X computer, but these steps are exactly the same regardless of what operating system you use. So if you're on Windows or on Linux, you just have to download the VirtualBox version of your computer, and then the steps shown in this lecture are exactly the same after installing VirtualBox. So I'm going to include the download link in the resources of this lecture, and I have it already opened in here. All you have to do is just scroll down. Make sure you click on the Kali Linux VirtualBox images, not on the VMware, and then download the version of Kali that's compatible with your system. So if you have a 64-bit computer, download the 64 bits. If you have the 32 bits, download the 32 bits. Now one click on this will start the download for you. If you're using Internet Explorer or Edge browser, then you're going to have to right-click and save target as. On Chrome and Firefox, you can just click the link. Now this is downloading for me, and I'm going to stop it because I've already downloaded it. So I already have it downloaded in here. And as you can see, you should get a file with a .ova extension. So you have the name followed by .ova in here. So to install this in VirtualBox, all you have to do is literally just double click the file. And as you can see, I get a window which will allow me to import this virtual machine. Now I'm going to keep everything the same for now, and I'm just going to click on import. Now that's it, the virtual machine is ready to be used. Now before I start it, I want to show you how to modify some of its settings. So we're going to click on it. Then we're going to click on the settings in here. Now depending on the host operating system you're using, the layout of VirtualBox might be slightly different, but using it is exactly the same. So make sure you follow the steps that I'm going to do right now, and it should work on all operating systems, whether you use Windows, Linux, or Mac OS X. So the first thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to go to System, and I'm going to modify the amount of RAM it has. Now depending on how much total RAM you have on your computer, you can leave this at 2 if you want, but 1 GB is enough for Kali. I usually leave it at 2 because I have 16 gigs of RAM, but if you have less, 1 GB is enough for it. Also, if you come here on the processors, you'll see that by default I have 2 processors assigned to it. Again, I have 8 CPUs, so 2 is not going to cause too much pressure on my computer. If you have less, 1 CPU is enough for Kali. Now, we're going to go to the network settings, and we're going to set this to use a NAT network. Now, sometimes when you set this to a NAT network, you won't see a network name in here. If you don't, please check out my link in the resources, and it will show you how to create a NAT network. For me, it already has a NAT network, so I'm going to keep it on this one. And what this setting basically does is it's going to create a virtual network where my host machine, which is my Mac OS X computer in here, is going to be the router for this network, and then all the virtual machines are going to be clients connected to this network. So they're going to get internet connection from my host machine, and at the same time all of my virtual machines will be connected to a virtual network. This is very handy because my virtual machines will be able to communicate with each other. We can use one of them to hack into the other. We can use it to test network attacks and much more. So it'll first allow my virtual machines to have internet connection. It'll also allow them to communicate with each other. And it will do all of this through a virtual network. It will not use any of your wireless adapters or any of your wireless cards. It will create a virtual Ethernet network. So as far as the virtual machine is concerned, they're going to think that they're connected to a network through a wire. Now, if you're on VirtualBox 6 and have a screen with high resolution, you need to go to Display and set the scale factor to 200%, because otherwise the virtual machine screen will be too small. But only do this if you have a screen with a high resolution and if you're using VirtualBox 6. Otherwise, keep this option the way it is. Now, we're done with this. I'm going to click on OK. And we can start this virtual machine like any other virtual machine. We just click on it and we click on Start. Now I'm going to click inside the virtual machine and hit Enter. And we are inside the virtual machine. Now, if you followed everything that I did so far, started Kali and got stuck at a black screen, so if you did not get the screen that I have right now, then don't worry about that. This is a common issue, and I've included a link in the resources of this lecture that shows how to fix this issue. You can access the resources of this lecture or any lecture by clicking on the resources icon on the top left of the player. If you follow all of the steps shown in the link and you're still stuck at this issue, or if you're getting a different issue, then please post this issue in the Q&A section and we'll respond to you within 15 hours and help you to fix this issue. Now it's asking us for the username, and the default username is root, so ROOT. And then it's asking us for the password, and the default password is the reverse of that, which is TOOR. And that's it. Now I'm inside my virtual machine. Now, since we installed this using the ready image, we can just go to View, Full Screen, and we'll be able to go in full screen, and the screen will resize automatically to the size of our screen. Now note in here, you see that I have a network icon appearing in here, and if I click it, you'll see it looks like I'm connected to a wired network. As you can see in here, it says wired connected. So Kali thinks it's connected to a wired network because we set this machine to use a NAT network. So if I open my browser in here, you'll see that I have internet access. So that's it. That shows how to install Kali Linux as a virtual machine. Don't be intimidated by this new operating system. We're going to go through the basics and we're going to use it a lot, and it's actually going to become very easy for you to use. Also, like I said, you won't lose any functionality when you install Kali Linux as a virtual machine. It's actually better to install it as a virtual machine because it's completely isolated from your computer and it will be very easy to fix if things go wrong. Keep in mind, installing this on different hardware and different computers might show you some errors and some issues. So please, if you have any errors, just add them in the discussions and I'll help you resolve them. One more thing, if Kali feels too slow or laggy, then please try giving it a few minutes because usually when you start Kali, it automatically starts checking for updates. This uses quite a bit of resources which would slow down the whole system. Also, it goes without saying, if your computer is not very powerful, then you should close any unused applications before starting Kali to free up some resources. But as you can see and as you'll see throughout the course, I'm using it with 2 gigs of RAM, 2 CPUs, and it's running very smoothly. And like I said, you can even get away with 1 gigabyte of RAM and 1 CPU. Now that we created our virtual machines, it's a really good idea to take snapshots of them. A snapshot allows you to store the state of the current virtual machine. So it allows you to go back in time or go forward to a certain state after you go back. So you can think of it as bookmarks. For example, now we can take snapshots of our fresh installation of the operating systems, and in the future, if we update or configure something or break something, you can literally just go back to the fresh install or go back to factory settings if you want to call it. Then, if you did something there and then you wanted to go back to your updated system, then you can go back to the updated system as well. So you can literally take a snapshot whenever you want to store the state of the machine, and then you can go back and forth between these states. Now, I'll show you how to do that. I have Kali Linux right here, the one that we installed, and it's very easy to create a snapshot for it. All you have to do is just go on the snapshots here and click on the camera icon. Then it's going to ask you to call this snapshot something, so I'm just going to call it fresh install. And I'm just going to give it a description saying it's a fresh snapshot with no updates. It's always a good idea to give a good name and good description so that in the future you can actually remember what these snapshots stand for. So now that I'm done, I'm just going to click on OK. And now you can see that we have the current state. So whatever you do in here, you can update, you can install programs, you can install libraries, and then if you break something or if you ever wanted to go back to the fresh install, you can just come back, click on the fresh install and restore. So let's see now. I'm just going to go back to the details as normal, and then we're going to start our virtual machine. I'll just show you an example now. So let me just create a new directory in here. So let's imagine that you actually updated the system. Now in the future, we're going to talk about updating the system, and I'm going to tell you that when you update, there is a good chance that some libraries, some programs will not be as up to date as the libraries that will be installed, and then these programs might start giving you issues. Now if you had the issues, you can put them in the discussion and I'll help you with them, but some cases I'll tell you that you need to go back or downgrade to the older version without the update. So all you'll have to do is just get back to the fresh installation to your fresh snapshot. So now I've just created a new file just to show you that once you actually go back, everything will go back to the way it was before the changes that you made. So I'm just going to turn off Kali. And now if we go back to the snapshots, you'll see that we have our current state. This state has been changed, so it's a changed state. Now let's say that you updated and the update was successful, so nothing was broken and you are happy with it. So what you should do is you should just come in and click on the camera icon again to create another snapshot. And we're going to call this one updated system. And then you can just put the date if you want to. And then I'm just going to put the description updated with no problems. So I'm going to click OK. And you can see that we have two snapshots. We have the first one, which is our fresh install. And then we updated our system and we have an updated snapshot of an updated system. So now let's say that after you updated and you thought everything is okay, you are using the machine and you have problems, so you wanted to go back to the fresh installation. All you have to do is just click on the fresh install, and you can see that the restart icon right here, just click that. And now it restored me to the fresh installation. So now if I start the Kali machine, you'll see that the new directory that we created will disappear. Now as you can see, we're back to where we were without the new directory, without anything. So we are actually back to the fresh installation of Kali, to when we actually took the snapshot. So now I'm going to show you another example. So let's say you went back in time and you went back to your fresh installation, and then for some reason you wanted to go back to your updated state to see if you can fix the issue, if I suggested the solution, or if you read the solution online and you want to go back and fix the issue that you had after the update. Or for any other reason, maybe you just wanted to go back to a different state. It wasn't an update state. I'm just giving an example with the update. So if you want to go back to a future state, you can still do that. So all you have to do is just, again, click on the updated, click on the restore. And we don't want to create a new snapshot from the current state, because the current state is the updated state. So we're going to restore this, start the machine, and you'll see that we'll be back to the updated state, to where we had the new directory created. So we're actually going to go back in the future now. And as you can see, now we have our test directory. So we're back to the state where we updated the system. So again, as you can see, the snapshots can be really useful. They can allow you to store bookmarks or states of the operating system, so you can actually have different configurations and you can switch between them as you want. Okay, now that we have Kali Linux installed, I want to give you a basic overview of this operating system in this lecture so that you're comfortable with it, and we're going to be using it throughout the whole course, so everything is going to become easier for you as we go through the course. Now the first thing that I want to talk about is the status bar in here. So you can see we have an applications menu in here, and inside it you can see all the applications are categorized. So we have information gathering applications, vulnerability analysis, web application analysis, reverse engineering, and so on. So you can go on each one of these entries and just select any program that you want to run. And the next menu that we have is the places, which shows you the most common places in the file system. So we have home, we have the desktop, we have the documents, downloads, and so on. So you can access the places from here, and then you click on home, or you can just click on the files icon in here on the left, and both of these will bring you to the home directory, which is actually the root directory. So it says home in here, but the actual location of this, if I do Control L, you'll see it is /root. So inside this, you can see we have our downloads, music, pictures, similar to the way that you'd have it in Windows and OS X. We also have the time in here, and in here on the right we have more controls. So the first thing that we have in here is the workspaces. So Linux comes with multiple workspaces by default. Basically what this allows us to do is we can have this desktop in here. For example, we can open the places and we can, for example, navigate to downloads and do some work in here. But if we go here to workplaces and go to the second one, you can see that I have an empty desktop that I can do whatever I want. And for example, I can launch Firefox in here. And then again, if I want to go back to the first workspace, all I have to do is click on here, click on number 1, and I'm back in here. And because I've already used up 2 spaces, the system is already creating a third empty space, so I can click on that, and as you can see, I'm in the third space where I can do more stuff. Now you can also navigate between the spaces by pressing Ctrl Alt up or down to go up and down in the spaces. The next part of the status bar is this last part in here, and if you click on it, basically the first thing it'll allow you to do is control the sound, Next, you'll see your connections. So as you can see right now, and as I showed you before, this is showing up as if we're connected to a wired network because I configured this network to use a NAT network. If you have a wireless adapter connected to this computer, you should be able to see it here. If you don't see it, then follow the link in the resources of this lecture to see how to properly connect your wireless adapter or any USB device to a virtual machine. Now, I should note, you can only use external USB adapters in order to access Wi-Fi networks from Kali. You cannot use the built-in Wi-Fi card. But Kali should have internet connection anyway because it is configured to use a NAT network, and as you can see in here, it's telling me my wired is connected. So if I actually go down to Firefox, I'll close this. And if I just go to google.com, you can see it is connected to the internet. So let's go back to where we were. And if we click here, we also have the battery settings, the user settings. You have this button to turn off the machine. This is to lock the machine, and this will show the preferences where you can modify the preferences of the machine. So you have Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, change the background, change the languages, and so on. So you can spend some time getting familiar with this. It's very easy and very intuitive. Same goes to the file manager in here, very intuitive. Double click to go in. You can right click and archive and extract here to uncompress it. You can navigate throughout these files by clicking them, and then you have the trash here, which contains the deleted files. Now we also have the dock in here, which contains the favorite applications, and you can also access all the other applications by clicking on this icon right here, the show applications, and this will show you a menu with the most frequent applications, and then if you click on all, it will show you all the available applications. Okay, now that we had a quick overview of Kali Linux, I want to spend some time talking about the Linux terminal. So you can access the terminal through this application right here. So if we click on that, it will open the terminal window for us. And as you can see, all it is a black screen where you can type commands. Now, the Linux terminal is actually very, very powerful because it can be used to do anything that you can think of, really. A lot of the applications in Linux that have a graphical interface were command prompt programs first, and then people made a graphical interface for it. So a lot of the time, maybe the graphical interface will be buggy or crash, and the terminal program will still work. Also, a lot of the penetration testing tools do not even have a graphical interface. A lot of them can only be used throughout the terminal. Not only that, but in many scenarios, you might only have an SSH or a command prompt access to a machine. So you need to know how to use this command prompt in order to achieve your goals. So throughout the course, we're going to be using the terminal a lot, and that's why I want to spend some time just showing you the basics of it and making sure that you're going to be comfortable using it. Now, the basic idea is you type a command and the result will be displayed for you on screen. So let's have a look on a very, very simple command, which is pwd. Now this command prints the current working directory, hence the name pwd. So if I hit enter, you can see it's printing /root, which means right now I am in the root directory. So basically I am in here. This is the root, it's home. So if I do ls, which is a command to list all the directories and files in the current working directory, we should get all of these directories that we see in here. So if I hit enter, as you can see, I can see all these directories in the current working directory. Now, another very useful command is the cd command. This command allows us to navigate into another directory. So for example, let's say I want to navigate into the downloads. All we have to do is type cd followed by the name of the directory that I want to navigate to. So I'm going to type downloads. Now if I hit enter, I should be inside the downloads now. So if I do pwd to see my current working directory, you'll see that it's saying I'm in root/downloads. So if I do ls here, it should show me all the directories and files inside downloads. So if I do enter, as you can see, I have a directory and a file in here, and these are the exact same files that you'll see if you double click the downloads here. Now, if you want to go back one directory, so similar to pressing the back button in here, all you have to do is do cd, again the command to change the working directory, followed by ... And now if I do pwd, you'll see I'm back in root, and if I do ls, you'll see all the directories and files in root. So that's all good, and there's actually a huge number of commands that you can use. So I'm going to include a link in the resources of this lecture of all the Linux commands that you can use. You don't need to know them by heart. We're actually going to be using a lot of them throughout the course, so you're going to naturally learn them as you go through the course. Now, if you are using a command and you're not sure about how this command works, you can just use the man command to display the manual of this command. For example, we've used the ls command here to list the files and directories in the current working directory. But if I do man followed by ls, this basically means I'm requesting the manual of ls. So I'm asking, how can I use the ls command? So if I hit enter, you'll see I'll get a screen similar to a text file, and basically it's giving me a lot of information on how to use the ls command. So you can see that it's telling us that this command will list the directory contents. You can see the way it works by typing ls, followed by the options, followed by a file if you want to run it on a file. You can see a longer description of the command. And then you can see all the options and the arguments that we can use with this command. Now, in Linux, most of the time, the options will always follow the same syntax. So you either use -letter or -- a word to specify the argument. For example, in here, the -a and -- will ignore entries starting with dot. So if you keep going down in here, you'll see all the options and arguments you can use with the ls command. And we have another example here. We have the -l, which means it's going to use a long listing format, which will display more information about the files in the current working directory. So let's have a look on that. I'm going to press Q to exit this, and then we're going to do ls as usual. And since we read the manual, we know we can do -l to see more information about the files. And if I hit enter now, you can see I'm still getting the same directories, but it's also showing me the permissions, the users, the date created, and so on. So you can use the man command on any command you want, not only on the ls. So you can use it on the pwd, you can use it on the cd, or any other command, and it will show you full description or the manual page of how to use this command. Now, I'm going to clear the screen by typing clear. And the next thing that I want to show you is the --help. So this is something that you can use again in almost all commands and all programs in Linux. So you can just type the program name or the command name followed by --help. As you might think, this will show you a help message telling you what this command is or what this program is, the arguments that it takes, how to use these arguments, and examples at the bottom. Now, another useful thing with the terminal, so I'm going to clear this again, is the arrows. So you can press up to go up to see all the commands that we executed before, and again you can go down to navigate between the commands that you executed previously. You can also use the tab for autocomplete. So again, let's do ls, and you can see all the files, and let's say we want to go into documents. So we can do cd followed by documents you can type documents, or if you're lazy like me, you can just do DOC and press tab, and as you can see, it's automatically completing the rest of the word for me. So this is something that comes very handy when you're using the terminal for a long time. Now, what I also want to show you is how to install programs in Kali from the terminal. So first I'm going to clear this. And the first thing that you want to do is update the sources where Kali can search and download programs from. So we're going to do apt-get update. Now apt-get is the name of the application that allows us to download and install programs, and we're saying update because I'm saying that I want you to update the list of all the programs that I can install. So I'm going to hit enter, and you want to make sure that you have internet connection when running this. And as you can see, it's telling me that it's done. And now we can go ahead and start installing applications. So the first program that I want to install is actually a terminal program, so similar to this one, but it allows us to have multiple terminal windows open in the same window. So in order to install a program through the command line, we're going to do apt-get, which is again the name of the program that allows us to install programs on the system. We're going to say that I want to install, and the program that I want to install is called Terminator. So very simple. First of all, we're typing the name of the command, which is apt-get. We're saying that I want to install, and the program name that I want to install is called Terminator. So I'm going to hit enter, and this is going to download and install Terminator for me. So you can use the same command to install any program that you want. You just need to replace Terminator with the name of the program that you want to install. Now I've already downloaded and installed this before, so it didn't ask me to confirm. But if you're running this for the first time, it might ask you to confirm whether or not you actually want to install this program. So all you'd have to do is press Y from the keyboard and hit enter. Now, as you can see, it's done. So if I go to my all applications in here and just type Terminator, you can see that I have it here. So I'm actually going to drag it and put it in my dock so I can access it easily in the future. So now I can just click it in here, and that will open Terminator for me. Now this is another application that allows me to run commands, so it's exactly the same as this. So again, I can do ls and pwd. The only difference is with this one, I can actually right click and click on split horizontally, for example, and this will split the same screen into two screens where I can run commands at the same time. So I can have some commands in here and I can run commands in here. And then I can even split this more if I want, again vertically or horizontally. And as you can see, I can have as many terminal windows as I want, and this will be very helpful in the future when we'll be running a number of programs and a number of commands at the same time. The first penetration testing section in this course is going to be the network hacking section. The reason why I chose to start with this, because everything, if you think of it, is connected to a network. So whether your target is a personal computer, whether it's a server, whether it's a company, or even if it's just a website, all of these systems are actually connected to a network. Literally, when you just connect to the internet, you're connecting to a network because the internet is just a really big network. So it is very important that you understand how networks work and how devices communicate with each other before we actually move into the next sections. So this section is actually going to be divided into three subsections. In the first subsection, we're going to talk about all of the attacks that you can do before connecting to a network. So you literally just have a computer with a network interface, possibly a Wi-Fi adapter, and we're going to see what can you do now before even connecting to anything. In the second subsection, I'm going to show you how to crack Wi-Fi keys and gain access to Wi-Fi networks, whether they use WEP, WPA, or WPA2. Once you have the access, you can move to the third section, which will apply for both Wi-Fi and wired networks. All of the attacks that you will learn in the third subsection apply whenever you are able to connect to the network, once you're able to gain access to the network. And here is where the real fun starts, because you're going to learn a number of powerful attacks that will allow you to intercept the connections in the network and capture everything sent in it, including usernames, passwords, URLs, chat messages, and so on. Not only that, but you'll also be able to modify data as it's being sent in the air. So you'll be able to control requests, serve people fake updates, inject evil code into the pages that they load, and so many other cool things. So everything in the third section will apply for both Wi-Fi and wired networks. Now, before we start talking about network hacking, you need to have a basic understanding on how networks work. Now, we all know that a network usually contains a number of clients connected to each other, and clients usually connect to a network in order to share data or share a resource. A really good example of a resource that we all have connected to networks in order to access is the internet. So we connect to Wi-Fi networks and even wired networks all the time just to access the internet. Now, all networks, whether it's Wi-Fi or wired, work on the same principle. They have a device that is considered a server. Now, in many cases, for example, in your home network, this server is your router. This is also referred to as an access point. Now, this router or server or access point is the only device that has access to the resource. So none of these clients have direct access to the resource, even after connecting to the network. The only way they can access the resource is through the access point. So, let's say for example you're client number 1 and you connected to your home network over Wi-Fi or over Ethernet over a cable, and then you opened your browser and you typed google.com. What happens is your computer will send a request to the access point asking for google.com. The access point has access to the resource, which is the internet in this example, so it's going to go and look for google.com. It will receive google.com and it will forward that response to your computer, and as a result, you will see the website loading on your browser. So, if you actually go to your router at home and look at it, you'll see at the back it's connected through a cable to the wall, and this is how it's getting its internet access. Therefore, it is the only device in your network that has direct access to the resource, and none of your computers, none of the computers connected to the network can access the resource or can access the internet without the router, without the access point. So the only way for all of the connected clients to access the resource is to go through the router. Now, the data is transferred between the clients and the access point as packets. So you can think of all of these arrows as a series of packets being transmitted between the client and the router as requests and responses. Now, in Wi-Fi networks, these packets are transmitted in the air. Therefore, if you have a wireless card and you're within range, you'll be able to capture all of these requests and responses. So basically, you'll be able to see anything that any computer connected to the same network as you does on the internet. because they will have to send all of this data to the access point, and because they're sending this data in the air because you're in a Wi-Fi network, you'll basically be able to capture these requests and responses, and you'll be able to see the URLs they visit, the usernames, the passwords they enter, the chat messages. Anything they do on the internet will be sent as packets, and therefore you'll be able to capture it and analyze it. We'll talk more about that and more about how networks work as we go through the course. But this is enough to get you going through the next few lectures so that you can sniff data, analyze it, and start launching some cool pre-connection attacks. In this lecture, I'm going to show you how to connect a USB device to a virtual machine. As an example, I'm going to be connecting a wireless adapter to my Kali machine. But the same method can be used to connect any USB device. Now, as mentioned in the course requirements, you need a wireless adapter for the cracking section of this course. So